Hello. It is such a beautiful day today. I am very, very grateful to be here. Very grateful that the sun is out. Oh my god. No wonder bitches were worshiping the sun back in the day because Jesus, this is magnificent. But today I wanted to talk about your inner child and how important it is to work in unison with them and to just create a relationship with them as an adult or even as a teenager, even just like growing up in general. It is so important to build a relationship with your inner child for so many reasons. I've been pondering this a lot recently, and I just feel her with me throughout so many of my experiences, and I know she would be so excited to see where I am right now and what I have accomplished in such a short amount of time. Whenever a lot of people talk about the inner child, it usually is tied to childhood trauma and working with childhood trauma, and no doubt that is a very important part of working with the inner child. But it's also so important to recognize, to reflect on the things that inspired you, that enlivened you, that filled you with life as a child. First, let's talk about trauma though, because as a child, you are very susceptible to everything going on around you. This experience is very new, and for that reason many things can be incredibly traumatizing to a child. Like something that you may experience today as an adult that you would easily be able to brush off and ignore and not think about, versus experiencing the same thing as a child, are two completely different things. And that is why it is so important to look back and assess certain events in your childhood and how different things impact your daily experience now as an adult. Okay, so many of us view our lives from the point of view of somebody else because we are afraid of how we are being perceived. And a lot of this goes back to societal conditioning and specifically religious conditioning, where it's like God is always watching and you're constantly just surveilling your own behaviors to make sure that you are doing good, and that is something that you will carry with you for the rest of your life if you don't assess how that shows up in your daily life. So I say all of this to say, so many of us invalidate our childhood experience or our childhood traumas or even traumas growing up as we get older, because we look at our lives through the lens of somebody else and say, oh well, they had it worse, so my problem isn't valid. It is so it is so incredibly important to validate your experience, to validate your life, to validate your fears, to validate your trauma. It is so important to validate it because this is your this is your life. This is your life, not anybody else's life. And if you're constantly playing the trauma Olympics with other people, constantly comparing your experience to another, then you will live your life through the lens of another person. It's not your life, it is somebody else's life. And you are constantly living your life and you will live the rest of your life for others, to please others, to make sure that everybody else is comfortable around you, to do whatever, but it will not be for your highest self, for what you know to be true and what you know to be good for you. So whenever working with the inner child, it is so it's so beautiful getting to know them, and it's so beautiful getting to know how that childlike spirit can present itself as an adult, and how important it is to keep a whimsical lens and to keep the perspective of play as an adult. Because this world can make us very, very cynical, can make us very, will easily and very quickly put us into a rat race when there needs to be time for play. There needs to be time for excitement. There needs to be time for joy. And damn, there was something that I wanted to say. It'll come back to me. But so look back at your childhood. What did they enjoy doing? What enlivened them? What made them excited to be alive? It could be something as simple as drawing, singing, building Legos, fucking being outside, climbing on trees. It could literally be anything. And pour into that as an adult. Be intentional and build that relationship as an adult with your inner child. If you have an altar, put a picture of your inner child on the fucking altar, bro. Like, literally be intentional about that. Go get yourself a snack that your parents would never let you get as a kid and enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Enjoy it. And for me, I'm somebody that loves stuffed animals, and I do not feel ashamed about that. I love little Sanrio plushies. Like, I have a collection of plushies on my bed. And why? Because it makes me feel happy, because it makes me feel whimsical. It makes me feel excited about being alive. Like, I love having cute little things in my room that remind me of what it is like to be a child again. And that will make your life feel so much lighter, make your life feel so much more exciting when you do pour in to that child instead of neglecting them. Because you do carry your inner child with you everywhere that you go. For me, I grew up in although whenever I was very young, my parents did struggle financially. I did grow up in an affluent household. I'm not ashamed to say that. But that doesn't negate all of the experiences that I've had that have led me up to this situation, that have traumatized me and marked me in very specific ways. And a lot of this showed up, although some things did show up in the household, and I'm not gonna air out my fucking family baggage because this is the internet, y'all don't need to be knowing about that. But a lot of this did manifest through me going to Catholic school and growing up in the church in a very indoctrinated setting. At least in my setting, at least in my experience, a lot of the teaching, a lot of the lessons were lessons rooted out of shame, lessons that were constantly teaching you to fear, to be ashamed of your desire, to be ashamed of your existence, and to constantly punish yourself, and that God was something to fear. God is not something to fear. God is something that you carry with you everywhere. God is everything. And if you are constantly living in a state of fear, then that will be reflected back to you in your human experience. And once you let go of that fear, so many doors will open up to you. Even me just sitting here, I could have been afraid in my apartment that somebody would have ran up on my ass and that somebody would fucking like jack my shit and not recorded this video. But what? I'm here, the birds are chirping, the wind is blowing, it is a beautiful fucking day, and I could have held myself back from experiencing this because of fear, but I chose not to. And whenever it goes back to indoctrination, a lot of us are taught to be ashamed of our identities. For me, obviously, I'm a queer person. Like, just fucking look at me. Like, bitch, you're gay. But it goes so much deeper than that, because my identity as a queer person is something that I have learned that not until recently I have learned to fully embrace and to fully fall in love with the experience of being a gay person. And it's so liberating to allow myself to express myself however the fuck I want without really needing to label my identity in any type of way, to put myself into a box that, oh, I need to dress like this, oh, I need to present myself like this, I need to show up like this. Like this show, I think this has showed up a lot for me through exploring my gender identity, because this year I really realized, like after shaving my head, I really realized that I was, a lot of my femininity was something that I learned to perform. It was something that I learned to just like play a role because of the way that my body looked, because of the way that I was raised, and because of what I thought was normal. But I realized this year that I don't have to put myself into a box because of the way that other people told me to live my life. Like I literally, and if my cousin is watching this, shouts out, I love you. I love you. This isn't me talking shit. But I had a friend, or had a cousin, where she was like, she was comparing my experience to somebody else. She was like, whenever you go to Oregon, don't shave your head, don't end up looking like a crazy person. And what did I do? I did it anyways. And it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. Like literally, me shaving my head was something that was so incredibly liberating in a way that I didn't even know it would have opened up so many doors for me. Low-key, I want to shave my head again, but I've gotten attached to my hair. I really like my hair right now. I really like the length, and growing it out is such a process. It's so annoying. But having a bald head, that was one of the best things that I could have ever done for myself, to explore an untapped part of my identity in a way that I would have never had the courage to explore otherwise. Yeah. And then through that, I've just learned that being queer, being a part of this community, it doesn't look any certain type of way. Like it's literally, it doesn't need to look a certain type of way. It doesn't need to be anything that they tell you to be, because even within the LGBT community, they tell you that you need to find a label, you need to immediately identify with a certain attachment, a certain identity. But like, no, bruh, this experience is so incredibly fluid. This experience is so subject to change, and if you put yourself into a box, you will be miserable. You'll be miserable. And if you ever want to change, you'll be afraid, because you're afraid that other people will condemn you for that. But like, no, I know that my identity is something that is always subject to change. Even if right now I am in a season where I'm more tapped into my masculinity, tapped into more of androgyny, I would say, I know that there's a possibility for me to move back more into a season where I'm more expressive of my femininity. And I know that there's room for a merging of the two, that there's not a necessity for me to put myself into a box, essentially. And moving to Oregon has just been such a beautiful experience, because I grew up in a place where being gay was not the norm. Like, I knew a lot of gay people, but it was something that was more hidden. It was something that was more, what's the word for oculto in English? Well, I guess occult, but it doesn't hit the same. But anyways, it was something that was more hidden. It was something that was more taboo, I would say. And being here, I just have recognized how open people are about their queerness, about their identity, and how it is something that a lot of people are very unapologetic about. And it's so beautiful to be a witness to that, because it looks so different for every single one of the people that I have encountered here on my path. And I'm just so grateful. I love gay people. I love gays. Shouts out to you guys. Shouts out. But yeah, all of this ties back to the conversation of the inner child, because even as a child, I knew, well, I didn't know that I was gay, but but there were signs. You guys know the song, Lovin' You by Minnie Riperton. That song, I thought that song was about a woman. Although the ending part is about her daughter, that song was very much about her man. And I thought that song was about a woman, and I was fucking like 7 years old bumping to that. I was like, wait. But and then there was just bruh. But this connects to the inner child because it's something. That's why I hate the argument that like, oh my god, that shit pissed me off. This is why I hate the argument that putting queer characters in media is something that will brainwash your kids into being gay. First of all, there's a lot worse things that your kids could be indulging in that have nothing to do with gayness, have nothing to do with queerness. Like, if anything, queer media as a child, that shit saved my life. That shit was something that was so transformative. That was something that was so validating to my experience, even though I didn't know how to put a label onto that, even though I didn't know how to identify how I was identified with that. It just made me feel so much more seen as a kid because I knew that these identities were also being represented in the media. I think of shows like Steven Universe, Adventure Time, The Owl House, even though I didn't watch that show until later, like a bunch of cartoons and kids media that represented queer relationships. That is something that is so incredibly important to represent in children's media because queerness is not a choice. Like, literally, as a child, like, I was watching all of those Disney fucking movies telling me that I needed to fall in love with a man, telling me that that was the answer, and bitch, I still ended up gay. I still ended up gay. Like, that argument makes no fucking sense. And it is just so, it's so stupid. It's really fucking stupid, and I don't want to hear any of that. I don't want to hear any of that in the big 2026, respectfully. And I'm just so happy to be here. I'm very happy that I have decided to begin prioritizing myself, prioritizing my peace, prioritizing my excitement, and prioritizing what makes me feel so alive. And this for me has meant embracing my identity, my queerness, embracing the things that make me excited to be alive, things like music, things like being outside, things like making art, and embracing the fact that it doesn't have to be so complicated. We really will put ourselves into a struggle where there really doesn't need to be any struggle. We'll put ourselves into so many complicated situations that, in essence, we can literally just walk away from. And that is why, and a big part of me realizing that I don't need to put up with things that are no longer aligned with me, a big part of me recognizing that is me honoring my inner child, me honoring what I know is best for myself, because I know that when I'm hurting myself, when I'm talking down to myself, when I'm talking down to my current self, I'm talking down to her. I'm talking down to my inner child. And that is something that is so, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to really think about. But childhood is something that is so pure. I've talked about this, well, I haven't talked about this on this channel, but being a child, that is one of the childhood babies, like anybody, that is one of the purest reflections of God in the human experience. When you are a child, when you are a baby, you are the closest to God that any human being can be, because this is before the world indoctrinates you, before you're conditioned to believe that you should be a certain way, before anybody outside of you begins projecting narratives of truth onto you. Being a child is something that is so incredibly divine, and it is so important to be kind to yourself, because you are not only being kind, because whenever you beat down on yourself, you're not only beating down on yourself, you're beating down on your inner child. And it is so important to be kind to the children around you. If you have children around you, uplift them. Don't tear them down. Bring them up. Allow them to be exactly who they are. And apologize to them if you have in the past done anything to bring them down, because children are very intelligent. Children are so intelligent. And you aren't above them for being an adult. So this is why I don't fucking feed into that narrative that respect your elders. Like, if that elder is not respecting me, I'm not gonna respect them back. Like, me personally. But it is so important to respect the children around you, to fill their cup, because that carries on with you for the rest of your life. And a lot of people are beat down, live their lives miserably, live very, 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 very dense realities because of the things that happened to them in their childhood. And if nobody is there to support them, then they will carry that with them for the rest of their life. So honor your inner child, honor the things that made them excited, honor joy, honor the spirit of play, honor the spirit of excitement in your experience, because that will lead you to so many beautiful, beautiful, beautiful realities. That is all. But yeah, bitch, if you got this far, like the video. Unless you're a monitoring spirit, I don't know why you got this far and you're not liking the video. Like the video, it's good for the algorithm. Smash that fucking subscribe button, bro. Smash that subscribe button, leave a comment, and yeah, thank you for tuning in. I love you. Have a beautiful day.